Hola mi gente, and welcome to Cuéntame con Sonia Camacho. This short-form podcast features the stories of Latinos from our community, from engineers, business owners, students, and so much more. Each episode will give you a quick boost of motivation and encouragement before starting your day. I'm your host, Sonia Camacho. Thank you for being here. Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to Cuéntame con Sonia Camacho. Today I have an amazing guest, Jorge Levario. He has an amazing story. He's a first-gen student originally from El Paso, Texas, and I'm so excited for him to share his story. He's definitely very influential. So, Jorge, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Sonia, so much for having me on Cuéntame con Sonia Camacho, and thanks for the kind introduction. So, my name's Jorge Arturo Levario-Delagarza, but I just go by Jorge. I am originally from El Paso, Texas, and I did actually have the opportunity to grow up for a few years in Mexico. So I lived in Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, and then I lived in Durango, Mexico, and then eventually my family decided to make the big move here to the States. So I've lived in Arlington, Texas ever since. Um, and so now what I do is I'm a mechanical and biomedical engineering student at the University of Texas at Arlington. So during my time in UT Arlington, what really got me into engineering and space. So just for those of you who don't know, so I am currently a SpaceX intern, and I've interned at NASA in the past. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about how I got that. So starting from the very beginning, when I was a kid, my grandpa, who lived in Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, he grew up there, spent his whole life there. He actually was a mechanic, so he didn't really have any formal engineering background. I mean, none of my older family really does. But what really intrigued me about space was that he had he was very passionate, a really burning passion for space exploration. So he in his living room he had like pictures of the shuttle, the Apollo, Mercury, Gemini, the orbiters, all that was in his living room. Like he had different posters of it, and he would always be watching different like NASA movies and NASA TV. So I was around that growing up. But I didn't really, it kind of just planting the seed in the back of my mind because I didn't really pursue it much further as a kid just because I kind of saw NASA as a very distant place. And then eventually that fire rekindled when I was in college. Because when I was in college, SpaceX had launched, my freshman year, SpaceX had launched their first ever Falcon Heavy launch. So whenever they deployed the Tesla Roadsters, and I saw the two Falcon 9 boosters actually land on different pads at the same exact time, I thought that was pretty cool. So that was kind of like the watershed moment for me. Uh, so that's kind of how I got into space. So I guess a little bit about what got me into my majors. So I did mention I am majoring in mechanical and biomedical engineering. So initially, my first major was biomedical engineering. The reason was because when I was in high school, I actually, unfortunately, tore my ACL. I was really like big into soccer, and soccer was pretty much what I did when I was like growing up all the way through high school. And I mean, I still do it on occasion, but so when I tore my ACL, my anterior cruciate ligament, it kind of forced me to take a step back because I had to do surgery. I had to do 9 months of physical rehabilitation, and through those 9 months, I saw, and this was conveniently my senior year of high school, back when I didn't know where I was going to go to college or what I was going to do. So I saw like the magic between what happens when doctors and engineers combine their specialties. So that's why I did biomedical engineering, because I really wanted to have a very direct impact on individuals and patients. And that was my idea growing up, was that mechanical engineers built cars or trucks. Like my dad's a truck driver, so I had the idea that mechanical engineers like were in that industry. I had the idea that civil engineers just built bridges.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what got me into biomedical engineering. But then eventually, I actually 2 years. So I started college in 2017. 2 years later, at the 2019, I went to the SHIP National Conference, and at that conference, I met so many individuals. This was another before and after moment in my life, because that conference was really life changing and really started the domino effects of where I am today. But essentially, at the conference, I decided that I also wanted to do mechanical engineering because I still really had this like burning desire to get involved in the space industry, but I wanted to broaden my engineering perspective. So I wanted to learn more about engineering, and I didn't want to just limit myself just to like medical applications. So that's why I also decided to do mechanical engineering. So through that time, uh, when I was studying mechanical and biomedical engineering, I also got involved very heavily in the rover team at my university. So the rover team is essentially a team that is a multidisciplinary robotics team that competes in the annual University Rover Challenge. The University Rover Challenge is a worldwide competition, so schools all over the world compete to qualify
Wow.
for that competition. And the year that I was involved, we actually qualified, I think, only for the second time in our school's history for the
That's
University Rover
cool.
Challenge. So that was pretty exciting. So during this, I joined the rover team because I wanted to learn, not necessarily because I wanted to, become like the chief engineer, but ultimately just by being consistent and, just attending meetings and volunteering and whatever I could. Eventually, I did have the opportunity to become a team lead and then ultimately chief engineer during the competition. So that was really that organization really helped me get to where I am today and learn more than anything, learn all the technical skills I needed to learn. And of
Yeah,
course, I wouldn't be where I am without the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers.
yes.
So this organization is an organization dedicated to promoting Hispanics in STEM and just fostering Hispanic leadership in nearby communities. So in SHIP originally, I was a member before I went to the convention, but after, I definitely did feel the fire inside me to get more involved within my organization. I knew I wanted to be a leader within the org, so I was first community outreach director, then I became vice president, and then eventually I got elected as chapter president. And
That's
then
so
after
cool.
that, because I actually had the opportunity to go work at NASA, I ended up taking a position on the regional team. So SHIP has 7 regions within the United States. So the region that we're a part of, Region 5, consists of 7 states. So Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and a few other states. So basically, there's a student committee team that's in charge of supporting the student chapters and pretty much running all the 7 states within the region. So I got involved in Region 5. I learned a lot because it was very different from just kind of focusing on your own chapter. Uh, so I got really involved in Region 5. And then ultimately, now what I do in SHIP is I do a lot of SHIP national stuff. Like I talk to parents in Equipando Padres sessions. Also, they have like different workshops where I have the opportunity to go present to different chapters as a guest speaker and just kind of share my story. So SHIP and Rover are really what really helped me develop the leadership skills that I have today.
Yeah.
So through that, I've had the opportunity to intern at Lockheed Martin, at NASA, and then at SpaceX. So first, it was at Lockheed Martin. Uh, so basically, at Lockheed Martin, what I did was I worked at the Missiles and Fire Control Center in Dallas, Texas, and I was a reliability and safety systems engineer. So through that, we were in charge of the high mobility artillery rocket system. So that's just the HIMARS, and that's just a wheeled launcher. And then after that, uh, I saw on LinkedIn an opening for a NASA position. So I applied to the opening for the NASA lithium ion battery team. So I applied, I interviewed. The interview was pretty unique, to say the least.
Hmm.
So I then got the offer. So then I transitioned to Houston. I did 2 internships at NASA in spring and summer 2022. So first I was on the lithium ion battery team, and then through the connections I made there and just uh, talking to multiple branch chiefs during the summer, I transitioned to the propulsion systems team. So they're in charge of designing reaction control system thrusters for the NASA's Morpheus vehicle and for future spacecraft. So after that, um, funny enough, I actually went back to school in the fall 2022 semester. But then 3 weeks into the semester, I actually got an offer from SpaceX in
Wow.
their SpaceX headquarters site in Hawthorne, California. So I took the leap of faith. I had to pretty much uh, drop all my classes, and I went to go work at SpaceX last fall, and it was pretty fun. I definitely learned a lot. I was on the HLS mission management team, which is essentially HLS is basically the Starship vehicle that's going to actually land on the moon for the Artemis 3 mission.
Oh,
So I
cool.
had the opportunity to work on that team last fall in California, and through the connections I made there, and through networking and connecting with everyone there, I had the opportunity to then which I'll be working this summer 2023 at Starbase, which is in southern Texas in Brownsville and Boca Chica, the southern tip of Texas. SpaceX has a site there. So I'll be working there this summer. And then this upcoming fall, I'll actually be a Pathways intern at NASA. So I'll be at Kennedy Space Center
Oh,
working on the
wow.
Exploration Ground Systems team. So that's a little bit about me. Um,
That's really
so,
inspiring. You
yes,
have
that's
like so
definitely my
many
story.
cool accomplishments under your belt. I think that's awesome. And I am definitely going to have your LinkedIn linked on this episode so people can connect with you and, pick your brain about everything. But I definitely want to have you kind of end this conversation with things that you wish you would have known before getting started or pieces of advice. You've already said so many great things, like taking that leap of faith and just really believing in yourself and gaining those leadership qualities and things like that. But what else is there that you want to share with the listeners who may be other Latinos who are looking up to you and everything?
Absolutely. So, my best piece of advice is definitely I'll relate back to my time when I was at because I didn't always work at NASA and SpaceX. Before that, I was in the customer service industry. Like I worked at Brahms Ice Cream, I worked at Chipotle,
I
I
love
worked
that.
as an Uber driver, so I've had those jobs as well, and I occasionally still do Uber on the side when I really need to. So just disclaimer, like I've had those jobs as well. And one advice that I would give is I feel like a lot of us Hispanics, growing up or starting out, we don't really have the resources because we don't really see like our family members or anyone we know in
Hmm.
these places. So we then kind of get discouraged. So what I would say is always just try to think positive and try to take advantage of any opportunities that may be there. Like, for example, when I was at Chipotle, originally, I was there just to be able to pay for my first like 2.5 years of college. But then, I got more, I did my research, and then I found out that Chipotle actually sponsors tuition reimbursement. So I thought, so that
Wow.
was actually, I was able to pay my university through tuition reimbursement that was offered at Chipotle. And that's something that I did just because I try to get more out of the opportunity that I had than just what I initially, the initial opportunities just really just getting a paycheck. But then when I looked into it, I saw more. So just really try to make the most of your opportunities. And same thing, like when I
Hmm.
was an Uber driver, I would listen to audiobooks on Audible about NASA and SpaceX. So I was educating myself as I was, doing just a regular uh, job. So really just make the most out of the opportunities because there's always like you can always dig for more than what can be seen really at the surface level.
Hmm.
So definitely, I would say persistence as well. Like I mentioned, I got my second NASA internship and my second SpaceX internship through persistence, because, like I mentioned, I had to talk to multiple branch chiefs. It was basically interviewing to see if they had any openings, and I had to make the first move by reaching out to them. So be very persistent because persistence does pay off, not just in getting an internship, but really in everything else you do. So
Yeah.
be persistent, and uh, be disciplined, and always just uh, try to get the most out of every opportunity that you can, because there's always more than what's initially just at the surface level. So that's probably my best piece of advice for the Hispanic and Latinos out there, because it really is possible.
I absolutely love that. I'm forever saying there are the resources out there, but you have to want it. You have to want, that end of the light, what is it? The end of the light of the tunnel or whatever. You have to want it and go search for that. So definitely love your advice and making the most out of every situation. Like I said, I will have Jorge's links at the bottom of this episode. Definitely connect with him. He's obviously an amazing guy. His story is so inspiring. And if this sounds like you, if Jorge seems like someone you could look up to, definitely reach out. Mentorship and all that is super important for our community. Jorge, thank you again so much for being here, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Follow the podcast on all social platforms at Cuéntame con Sonia Camacho. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Want to be featured in a future episode? Email cuéntame.sonia@gmail.com. Thank you to our equipment sponsor, Shure.